Because I'm a West Point graduate and because I served in Vietnam, and I was involved with lots of things in Vietnam where I knew a lot of things, a lot of information, I didn't trust Nixon at all. I agreed with everybody who called him Tricky Dicky. You know.
But was that because you were a Democrat?
No, it was because I knew the sort of stuff they got up to. Right? I just didn't trust him. He told us he was going to bring us out of Vietnam. Actually, more people died in Vietnam when he took over until the end of the war than ever died before that. You know, I mean, he said he was going to bring us out of Vietnam, but those last few years were a bloodbath, absolute terrible. So I didn't trust him. So when, in fact, the Watergate scandal broke, first of all, there was a great generation gap here. Okay, I must tell you about the generation gap because it happened between my parents and I. Right? I came back from Vietnam, a decorated war hero, right, and I was against the war, and I went on, and I actually was televised talking about against the war, right. My parents didn't talk to me for 5 years, and they hadn't even been there.
When did you get back?
I got back in 1970. So it was quite a shocking thing, really. I mean, it was like so during the Nixon thing, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk much at all at that time. But I watched the resignation of Nixon when he finally realized he was up against a corner and he was going to be impeached, and he decided to resign rather than go through the terrible trauma of having a president actually disgraced and impeached. He resigned and gave over his presidency to Gerald Ford, who was a totally clean and safe pair of hands. And so he resigned rather than being impeached.
Did you, for a moment, ever believe Nixon? I mean, I remember there's a wonderful moment on television where he talks about no whitewash in the White House.
Yeah.
Did anyone believe him?
I just don't remember. I am not a criminal.
Yeah.
I am not a criminal. No, nobody believed him.
But that's a generational thing. Did your parents believe him?
They believed him. I didn't believe him because I knew that he was a criminal. Sorry, I truly, and I believe that lots of people who were in power at that particular time were doing things that were unspeakable, and I knew they were. You know, because of my position, I knew they were. And Nixon, as far as I was concerned, was a black hat. You know, he wasn't a white-hatted cowboy. He was a black-hatted cowboy. And the entire administration looked very dodgy at that point. And it really did cause a huge knot in American political life. And all of a sudden, someone who's been vice president of the United States and then become president of the United States is proven to be a liar, somebody who conspires, somebody who deletes tapes so that he can't be convicted. It's just terrible. You know, all of a sudden, somebody who's in power is shown to be corrupt.
Do you think in a way that it was a positive thing for the United States?
Absolutely.
Purged the system and showed that the checks and balances worked.
Absolutely. And the checks and balances did work perfectly. It showed that the American system worked. We got, he was forced out by the Congress. Right, and that was a very major point that it did work. And if it hadn't worked, it would have been a disaster. So it did work. Nixon left. I still remember him waving in the helicopter with Pat, waving goodbye. And I was just thinking in the back of my mind, you bastard. All of my friends that were killed in Vietnam just because of you. And I was horrified of this person. Right? I wasn't with my parents. I was with my parents-in-law at the time. And watching him leave in the helicopter. And it was being televised, and Walter Cronkite was talking about it. And here we're seeing a historic moment of Nixon leaving of him leaving for the last time. But I went, good riddance. You know, I mean, my goodness, how much could we take?